people are people. Like, we're hard to be in relationships with because we're imperfect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have relationships, and it's hard to have a relationship with this girl because I love her so dearly, but sometimes she pisses me off.
Yeah. And I'm sure you do for her too.
Yeah, and I do for her, and it's so natural, and it's like, this is how you understand people. This is how you grow deeper. This is how you feel understood and how you understand other people, is that you be honest. And you tell them exactly how you feel, and you try to figure out, and you do it together. And that's how you will grow deeper and become authentic. Hey guys, welcome back to the Journey Coaching Podcast. My name is Abigail.
And I'm Tyler.
So today we're going to be talking about authenticity. So Tyler, do you want to tell me how you feel about that? Be authentic.
Sure.
Your life, your journey starts now.
Well, honestly, if to be totally honest with you, I was not very good at being authentic until pretty recently. In high school, or not just in high school, but in life, people will talk about somebody who seems like they're a different person based off of who they're around. No one ever said that to me, and I don't think really people said it about me, but I think I had just gotten so good at it that I was doing it and didn't realize it until later on. I realized it about myself. Like, oh, I just put on a mask based off of the people group that I'm in, and I got kind of good at it. And that's scary to think about, because when you're good at that and you put on a mask based off of who you're with, eventually you forget who's behind the mask. And so there was a period of time there where I was kind of just floating through life like, I have no idea who I actually am, because I just shaped my personality to be whoever I'm with. And so it wasn't until, probably until college or near the end of college that I really started to gain any sense of authenticity or confidence in who I am. And I've seen plenty of benefits from it, and I know that you've talked about that too, just your own journey. So what is that like? What's that been like for you, trying to be more authentic recently?
So a story I can remember that I actually was just thinking about a few days ago is my brother Joey. He told me one time when we were little, we were around a group of people, and afterwards he came up to me. He was like, Abigail, you literally just changed with the group. And I go, what do you mean? And I didn't even realize I did it. And I would have been around 9 or 10.
Sure.
So I was really, really little.
Not even that old yet. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that was my first realization of, okay, what's going on, because I'm not acting the way I usually am. Sure. And that's not good. It's good to be authentic and be yourself. Obviously, you don't want to be making people uncomfortable to the point where it's like, oh, you're a weirdo.
Authenticity is not an excuse to be a jerk.
Yeah, that's that's a good way to define that. So, I think recently, and probably in the past year, I've decided that I was going to make it more of a priority where I was going to be authentic and I was going to be myself. The past year, the way I've been deciding, I envision myself, because I'm a big visionary.
Yeah.
I envision myself, okay, what type of woman do I want to be in the future? Who do I want to have around me? And I started volunteering more and and searching for more opportunities to be around people who are disciplined and kind and respectful. And so I've noticed that I've grown so much, and I've grown so much in the areas that I want to, because I've been searching for that. So that's what I want to be authentic in. And I am now just at so much peace. I just have so much peace. And even when life is crazy, I know that I'm going to be okay, because I'm being true to myself. And I've been getting deeper in my faith and going to church a lot more often and volunteering at church. And I've just been meeting so many great people. And so it's such a blessing that I had this realization that I don't want to pretend to be something that I'm not. Yeah. And so anyways, we kind of have to talk about, how do you get to that point? How do you manage, being who you want to be?
Yeah. I think one of the things that you said that is very true, that I wouldn't have maybe considered before is just that as you are more authentic, it brings the people closer to you that should be, and maybe distances some of the people that shouldn't be as close to you. And that's not to say that they're bad people, but maybe that like who you are just doesn't connect, or
click.
maybe they have a very different understanding of the world that wouldn't necessarily align with yours, which is okay. It doesn't mean you can't get along or even still be friends, but you don't have to be the best of friends. And I think part of that is because like when you put the mask on, depending on who you're with, everybody's drawn in, but they're friends with a version of you that's not authentically you, that's not really
who you are.
Yeah. So then when the real you starts to come out, it's not surprising to me that some of those people would drift away. Just because they were not that they weren't actually friends with you, but they were more friends with the idea of you that you had kind of made up, or that I had kind of made up in order to fit what we thought they wanted, truthfully. And so it doesn't surprise me that that's the case, that as you are being more authentic and making an active step in that way in your own life, that some people would come closer, that you would make a friendship that could like be a really great connection almost immediately because both of you are willing to be authentic, as opposed to, the surface level friendships beforehand, maybe when you weren't quite as authentic. And so I think, as we all seek to, in our own journeys, pursue authenticity, we have to be reminded to have an appropriate picture of ourselves, I guess I would say. Like, don't downplay your strengths, but also don't overemphasize your weaknesses. You know what I mean? And vice versa. Don't be so cocky that you overinflate your self-image, but also don't be so down on yourself that you underplay your own strengths. I think it's the second, chapter 2 in the Journey Coaching book talks about an emphasis on strengths. That's not to say that the book doesn't also talk about weaknesses, because that's chapter 3, growth areas, we call them. But that starting with our strengths is often helpful because it helps us to be more authentic. I think one of the reasons that we wear the mask is because we just don't think that we have any strengths, or that the strengths that we do have don't matter, that people want other things. And so instead of just being ourselves and kind of using the strengths that we have, we put out this idea that we have different gifts or different strengths based off of what people want, what we think people want. And so one of the quotes from the book on page 19 says, when you're trying to list out or think about your strengths, you might only come up with weaknesses. You're like, well, I can't tell you what I'm good at, but I can tell you what I'm bad at. And if that's the case, you might be overly self-critical. Or another reason that people are less willing to be authentic or find it difficult to highlight their own strengths is because you do them so well that you take them for granted. You believe that everyone else can do them too, or that they're not valuable, or that other people won't accept them. All of this kind of connects to that same idea of like, if you downplay your strengths and overemphasize your weaknesses, then it's really difficult to be authentic, because you believe that the real you is something that's not beneficial, that nobody wants to be around, that no one else wants. And I've never met anyone for who that's actually been true. Everybody I know has, to one degree or another, something to offer, something to bring to the table in terms of friendship, because they're human, and because we all have value, and because we're all created in God's image. And so if we would be willing to, not look at ourselves as terrible, but not look at ourselves as the best person in the world, and actually just seek a right version, a right vision of ourselves, then I think it would be much easier for us to be authentic.
Yeah. It reminds me of, so something happened with one of my friends recently, was that something happened, and it was just one little comment, but like subconsciously I was pulling away from her, and I didn't even realize it. Well, obviously subconsciously.
Yeah.
And then I began randomly having such like bitterness and resentment towards her. And then I realized, I was like, this is a sign for something deeper. Like, I can't just pretend like we're okay, because that's not what our relationship is built off of. Like, we told each other that, we're good friends, and we tell each other the things that we need to. And so being honest is very, very important. And so I told her, I remember we went to this park and I said, so and so, I feel like I don't like you. I feel like there's this built up resentment and bitterness and I don't know why.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and it's so interesting because it's like the conversation went, and this is like the tone. It's like, Tyler, I just feel like I don't like you. I feel like...
Yeah, you've been thinking that the whole time, haven't you, Abigail?
I'm just kidding. No, and it's so interesting because it's like, even after the conversation was done, that deep conversation, we hung out probably for like an hour after that, and we were just, it was like normal.
Yeah.
Like we could say that to, because it wasn't fixed, and it still like is not fixed. It's a growing opportunity because it takes the honesty and authenticity to say that. And because honestly, like I feared that, what if she starts like yelling at me? What if, and that's not really her character, but what if she says, I don't want to be friends anymore, or I don't like you? And it's the scariness of like walking into that abyss where you don't know what's going to happen next, but all you know is being honest is the best thing I can do right now.
Yeah.
And so I think sharing that with her really made me realize and really made me open like my eyes to, this is how I want my relationships to look like, is that you're not going to get along. Like people are people, like we're hard to be in relationships with because we're imperfect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have relationships, and it's hard to have a relationship with this girl because I love her so dearly, but sometimes she pisses me off. Yeah. And
I'm sure you do for her too.
Yeah, and I do for her, and it's so natural, and it's like, this is how you understand people. This is how you grow deeper. This is how you feel understood and how you understand other people, is that you be honest. And you tell them exactly how you feel, and you try to figure out, and you do it together. And that's how you will grow deeper and become authentic. And when I was younger, I always thought that I was just searching for the peace. Like, only say the things that will bring peace.
Sure.
And that doesn't bring peace. You know what brings peace? It's bringing up the stuff that you don't like and trying to figure out and doing it together.
Yeah.
And so that's how I'm going to lead my relationships in the future. And I think that's a really great quality to have. And that's something that everyone can build.
Yeah. Yeah. Being a peacemaker is a good thing when the peace is built on the truth and not a lie. I think the saying is something along the lines of like, if you tried to put a Band-Aid on something that actually needed stitches.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you might make it look like things are okay because you paper over, you cover the bleeding and it works for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But if that cuts deep enough to need stitches, a Band-Aid's not going to be a good long-term solution. It might actually cause more damage. And so, yeah, I agree. It's finding peace requires a level of authenticity that might bring up some uncomfortable conversations. Yeah. And one of the things, actually, this has been true throughout all of human history. And as we were talking and getting ready, I was thinking about Galatians chapter 6. So this is just one of the letters from the New Testament. Paul wrote it, and he says in verses 2 and 3, he says, "Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself." And so this kind of touches on that previous point. Like, don't think higher of yourself or lower of yourself than you should. But it also says bear one another's burdens. And before that, it talks about having a spirit of gentleness. This idea is, if we're going to have an authentic relationship, sometimes it means we might have to walk through some heavy stuff together.
Yeah.
But when you are committed to seeking healthy community and also being part of healthy community, you can create spaces for authenticity to really flourish. And so part of that means you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Like, you have to be willing to have difficult conversations, or even just be around people that might make you uncomfortable initially, because if you want them to be authentic, then you have to be ready for whatever you're going to get, and vice versa. And that's okay. Like, learning to find beauty in people's quirks, and a big word for that might be like idiosyncrasies, but being willing to find
that's a big word.
Yeah. But just being willing to recognize the things about people that you might think are strange are actually beautiful, and it's what makes them unique. Yeah. And then also being ready to forgive and being ready to ask for forgiveness, because I think sometimes we lack authenticity because we desire to avoid conflict. Like you said, we want peace, but it's a fake kind of peace. And we don't ever want to be in a position where we have to forgive someone or ask someone for forgiveness. But the reality is, and you touched on this already, if we're broken people, if all of us are imperfect, if all of us need to be shown grace and mercy, then we're going to have to forgive each other at some point. Like, I don't know many relationships that I have, I mean, real deep relationships that I have, where I haven't had to either forgive or ask for forgiveness at least once, probably more than once in most of them. And that's okay. Like, healthy community is going to require that. But if you seek healthy community, if you seek like real friendships built on authenticity, then to continue to grow in authenticity is going to be much easier, much more fruitful. It's kind of like, I know Dylan brought this up in our last episode, but it's like working out. It's like building a muscle. Like, it's going to be difficult and it gets broken down a little bit, and then it builds up and it's stronger and it gets stronger. But it requires practice just like anything else. And I think another thing is being comfortable with who you are requires you to root your identity in something. And so for those of us who are Christians, we're rooting our identity in Jesus. We're rooting our identity in the fact that he loves us, that he would die for us, that we were created in the image of God, all of these things. But even if you're not a Christian, there are things you can root your identity in that are much healthier than what do other people think about me, or am I well liked by this group of people? Because that's where I was for a long time, and that's why I would think I would constantly change my personality to fit who I was around, because I was gaining my sense of identity, my sense of self-worth from, do the people in each of these groups like me and think I'm valuable and want to keep me around as one of their friends.
It reminds me of this quote that says, "Don't take for granted something good, striving for perfection."
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've learned, and over the past year, there was months last year where I didn't hang out with like very many people. But a few months before that, I had been hanging out with a lot of people, like groups of people. And then when I was growing deeper in my faith, I kind of pulled away from everyone. And it was a healthy pulling away.
Sure.
Because it was like a refinement. Like, okay, I need to go figure out what I want to bring into my life and what I want to leave. And so one of the things that I had to learn, and that I'm still like going through it and I'm figuring it out, is that you miss some really beautiful things if you're constantly focusing on the negative and thinking that perfection is going to come around the corner.
Yeah.
They're just going to magically appear. And if you're constantly like imagining, okay, this could be perfect and this could be better and this should be better, you're going to miss some really good things and some really good relationships and some good people. And we're all imperfect. And we all just need to realize that on this earth, we're not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And we have to come to grips with that. Otherwise, you're going to get into a really unhealthy pattern, setting people up on pedestals just for them to fall down.
And probably yourself, too.
Yeah.
You're just putting such unrealistic expectations on you and on the people around you. Mm-hmm. One, you're going to lack authenticity, but two, you're going to be constantly disappointed, which is no way to live. And if I'm imperfect and you're imperfect, then why would I think we could ever have a perfect friendship? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. But we can actually have a really good one, and even a better one than what we would get if we tried to be perfect, if we're just willing to be authentic and real. Same thing with the podcast. It's like, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Dylan's not perfect, right? He's not even here today. Yeah. That jerk. So it's like,
of course, it really shows he isn't perfect. I'm just kidding.
Take that, Dylan. But to that point, there's a really good thing going here. And if we only cared about perfection, we would have given up a long time ago.
Yeah. And I mean, even being like authentic with the audience, like I was listening to the podcast about gossiping and I was like, I don't know if this was the way it is edited or I'm being too like hard on myself, but I feel like I'm sounding a little bit judgmental or a lot of bit of judgmental. And I realized I had been comparing myself to people because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I listen to podcasts with people who are in their 50s and 60s and they're talking about, they're really intelligent and they have life experiences. And I'm like, I was thinking like, oh, I should be as good as them.
Why can't I be them? Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Absolutely.
no, like I can't. Like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I have no idea. And that's okay. I'm figuring it out.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Not me being authentic with the audience.
Let's go.
Like, hello?
I think if you or someone you know is looking to grow in their authenticity or develop some authentic relationships, one of the great ways that you can do that is through the Journey Coaching resources that are designed to help you along your journey, both as a person and in your relationships with others, to be able to grow in your authenticity, have a better understanding of yourself so that you can better help others as well. And so find another imperfect person like you and just grab a couple of these books and get some imperfect coffee that might be a little sweet or might be a little too bitter, but in reality we know that authenticity is what gives our life meaning and what gives our life flavor, because honestly, if I had the same cup of coffee every single day, I'd get bored eventually. So choose authenticity, and like Abigail said during this episode, don't take for granted something that could be really good and beautiful, striving for perfection.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time and make sure you like and subscribe. Visit us at journeycoaching.org and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Start your own journey at journeycoaching.org.
Your life, your journey starts now. Ba-da-ba-da.